That's country club, but I hear. Okay.
Bacon on the burger. Oh, no. And then I give you their. Right here.
The gates of love. Okay. The gates of mother, oh, Irara, Iatani, Shiftecha, Shantecha, Shiftecha, Shantecha. Emayena chamuni tarok lefanai shulchan tarok lefanai shulchan tarok lefanai shulchan Yetzorah Shanta V'shemen roshi V'shanta v'shemen roshi Siribaya Achtov Chesed Yudafuni Kol Yemei Chayai Shabti B'Veit Adonai B'Orech Yamim. Psalm 23, song for love's sake. When love's the guide by my side, I want for nothing. Chase me through lush meadows, set me adrift, stretched out on meandering waters, at ease with the current, time stilling to all but the shore. Nefesh soul will recover like the land, Noah reseeded with vines, revived like Hannah spinning grace with tears upon the wheels of justice, revealing your namesake. Even when I descend into valleys crowded with figures of death and disgrace, I will not succumb to fear, now knowing where I am. I am with you. Family tree in hand, courage and comfort blossom under the sun, casting shadows, revealing time in melodies, measure for measure. These and these harmonies lay my threats to rest. The spirit of play will stand and say, send me, tabling shame and sorrow that you may feast today. Head anointed with oil, love's cup pouring over the rim with plenty. Gratefulness and loving kindness coursing through my veins to live in all my limbs, words, and ways, coming home at last to sit and Sabbath rest in your presence. The 23rd Psalm speaks of an idyllic place. Green pastures, still waters, families of strength and healing, keeping the fears at bay in the face of the valleys and the shadows of death, cups spilling over with life. As a daughter, a sister, and a wife, and a teacher, and a counselor, and a businesswoman, and a mother, and a bubby, and a great-grandmother, and a very fast hiker, Lila Chronic Grob was such a presence. So this afternoon, we gather under a Colorado blue sky, saddened by Lila's death late last week, culmination of months and years of a slow and difficult decline. And even as we are pained by her death, we remain awed by her life. A long life, well lived, filled with a quiet, unassuming dignity and an undeniable impact. So we gather together united on her desire to ensure that Lila's life and legacy carry on. May the cup of her remarkable life flow on. And each of us, those here at the cemetery and those tuned in via live stream, we're with you, you're with us, and we are not alone. We are part of a web of connection that Lila wove with her love and her life, connecting us to one another and so many more. Both her parents, Max and Eva Chronic, her siblings, Howie and Annette, her husband, there lying next to her, Jerry, her children, Brad, Evan, and Seth, and their partners, Sharon, Ellen, and Stephanie, her grandchildren, Elisheva, Rivka, Joshua, Adam, Joel, Alicia, Sydney, and Sierra, and 4 great-grandchildren, Biel, Shoshana, Roi, Zev. Her extended family, students, clients, hiking group mates that tried to keep up with her, fellow congregants at Beth Evergreen, friends and neighbors, and more recently, her own caregivers. Those of us here today stand for many, and we have many reasons for being here. We're here first and foremost, though, to honor the life and memory of Lila Grob. We are also here to accompany her on her journey from the struggles of this world to the rest of the next. We gather to acknowledge the extent of the loss brought upon by her death. And we come together to begin the process of recalling and incorporating into our lives the many gifts and blessings that she offered during her amazing life. I'm going to invite some folks from the family to share a few words. Seth and Evan and Sierra.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you for being here, both present and virtually, to support the family. It means so much for us that you're here. My mom. I want to share some comments about my mom. And what I really want to do is I want to focus on my mom's vibrant, fulfilling, and long life rather than her decline towards the end of her life. This past weekend, since she passed away on Friday afternoon, has been filled with mixed emotions. Emotions that include grief and loss of a mother, yet happiness, as I was able to sit around the table and talk with my daughters, my wife, my brother, and others, and recollect the funny stories and the meaningful life that my mother experienced for 9 decades. My mother had so many chapters inscribed during this lengthy period of life that it would literally take me days or weeks to describe who she was to so many people. I want to just take a few minutes, however, and provide a snapshot of some of the most relevant chapters that were significant to me. From my perspective, that first chapter was when she raised three very different sons and being our primary caregiver. When I think of words that describe my mother, I think of the words nurturing, compassionate, loving, and supportive. Through her caregiving and her professional pursuits, she served as a role model in so many respects. She instilled in each of us, the notion that it was important to be educated and understanding what was happening in the world at large. She instilled upon us a desire to work hard and to do our best, to value family, and possess a moral compass to help others. I believe the things that she's instilled in myself and my brothers have been passed on to our children, and soon grandchildren and great-grandchildren, God willing. So her legacy will carry on for decades to come. So during this first chapter of life, she was raising me, she shared with me a particular love and support of music. My mom and dad, who were lovingly married for 60 years, shared a passion for the arts. They would frequently go to New York and attend concerts in the opera and ballet and theater. My mom was also a classical pianist, and I remember her often sitting down and enjoying playing the classics. My mom's love of music, I believe, was a huge contributor to my passion for the piano. And I will share with you that during high school, when I would literally practice hours and hours of jazz and rock and roll and classical piano, she was my biggest fan. For hours while I practiced, she would sit in the kitchen so that I was not alone upstairs. And I would hear her humming in the kitchen and scrubbing the floors for hours. And many times I would have to tell her to quiet down so as not to interfere with my changing rhythms. Another chapter of my mother's life involved the love of the outdoors. She was an avid hiker, walker, and cyclist. She was a speed demon, as the rabbi alluded to, on the trails and the open roads. We spent many family vacations hiking in the national parks. And I want to share with you a funny story when I graduated from college. I was in North Carolina, my mom was in New Jersey. And I called her up and I said, Mom, I think we should go on a bike trip. I think we should bike through New Hampshire and Vermont for 3 weeks. And there was silence on the phone. And then I said, Mom, are you there? And she said, oh yeah, I just didn't believe what you just asked me. Are you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm serious. Let's do it. So my mom trained for that ride. We went about 40 to 50 miles a day through Vermont to New Hampshire. She was solid as a rock. And we packed up all our panniers with our tents and our cooking gear and our food and our clothes. And what I remember about this trip was that first night we were camping. While my mom was an avid, enthusiastic outdoors person, she'd never camped. So that first night I set up the pup tent, 2-person pup tent, cheap, bought it at Walmart. And lo and behold, the skies opened up that first night. For all of you who've been camping and familiar with the rain and being in a tent, they leak. And so they were leaking, the tent was leaking, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a tough night. We're going to wake up cold, we're going to wake up tired and wet. And my mom looked up at the dripping tent and just started laughing and giggling like a little girl, because this was fun. That's the type of person she was. When I look back on my life and my love for the outdoors and cycling, I realized that she was the one who planted the seed and let it germinate. The third chapter of my mother's life involved my parents moving to Evergreen, Colorado 25 years ago when my oldest daughter, Sydney, was born. Some people would cringe when their parents wanted to move a mile away from them. But I will tell you, for myself, my wife, Stephanie, my daughters, this was a blessing. My mom relished the role of being a buddy to her granddaughters and having Stephanie as a daughter she never had biologically. She, along with my father, became a seamless presence in our lives, including sharing dinners 2 to 3 times a week, attending kids' soccer and basketball games, going to recitals, sharing holidays together, vacationing together, nurturing, caring for our children when they were sick and injured, and even volunteering to take our dog every Thursday on a hike. I feel so lucky to have my mom touch and impact and play such a critical role with my family to the same extent that she played with my brothers and I while growing up. Finally, I share a few comments about my mom's final chapter after my dad passed away 6 years ago. During these past 6 years, my mom lived independently and in a memory care unit. While I know it's hard for myself and many others to watch her mental health decline due to Alzheimer's, I believe that she was at peace. I believe that she was comforted. She enjoyed the simple abundance moments in life, whether it be when we came to visit and her eyes sparkled with joy, when we had a meal together, or when we just sat outside in the garden, soaking up the sun, holding hands, and enjoying listening to the birds chirping. I kind of look around today, and she loved the sun, she loved the warmth. This is an okay day. It's okay, good day to remember who she was. I believe that there was a lot of symmetry these past few years where our roles were reversed from one of child to parent to one of caregiver to parent. And while I can say it was indeed hard at times for this role reversal, I wouldn't have traded it. I feel lucky, again, as I've talked about, to have had her close by for these last 3 decades of life. I end with a blessing for a parent, and I apologize if I say the Hebrew wrong, but I'll do the translation, which I will get right. Harakaman hu yaverik et avi mori v'yet imi morati. And generally translation is, Mother, thank you for the traits you have modeled, for showing me that love can overcome obstacles, for sharing celebration and pain, for teaching me about fragility and strength. May we all say, Amen.
My mom. Words that come to my mind. Loving, practical, active, professional. Let's start with the practical. When I was a kid, I remember 2 funny stories that demonstrate the practicality of my mother. Once when I was a little kid, a girl on the school bus where we would go home decided she wanted to pick a fight with me. And I thought to myself, this can't be good. I either will beat up this girl, and everyone said, you beat up a girl, or worse, she'll beat up me, and I'll be the laughing stock of the school. So I was very concerned about this in about 3rd grade or so. And I came home after school and told my mom and said that this girl wants to fight me the next day, and I don't know what to do. She said, don't you worry. And the next day, we were getting off the school bus and all the kids were around. My mom was biking down the street to where we met. And that broke that up. It never happened again. The other story was, unlike my brother Seth, who loved the piano, and as you heard Seth describe, could play for hours on end, I played the violin, but I did not enjoy it. Although my father played the violin and my mother played the piano, and it was a joy to them, it was a struggle for me. And I never really liked practicing. And although sometimes they would try to encourage me, it didn't do well until my mom figured it out. And she said, Evan, if you practice for 30 minutes, you will get a nickel. And if you practice for 30 minutes and don't cry, you will get a dime. It worked. I was getting dimes every day and practicing without incident. So those are just 2 of a couple of examples of my mom being practical. As my brother said, my mother and my father instilled in us education, morality, family, and love of the outdoors. I want to touch upon some of the things perhaps that Seth didn't quite touch upon. Education. was very important to my mother and my father, but in a quiet way. They would never insist or lecture or tell us what to do. It was just expected. And my two brothers and I all went on to college and graduate school and all into professional fields. I think because of the quiet determination of my mother and father. Now, my mother, this is in the 1970s, a long time ago. After getting her college degree at NYU, she went back to school after she had the three of us, and she got her master's degree. And then she went to Centenary College, which was an all-girls school, to be the placement director, which she did for a number of years, and then established her own counseling business, helping people changing careers. And I remember she would network, she would go to events. I remember she was even on one of the TV channels speaking about this, speaking about both counseling and about women's rights, which back in the 1970s was not what it is today. I even remember when George McGovern ran for president as a Democratic nominee, that she ran the state of New Jersey campaign for. My mom wasn't the most sociable person in the world. She wouldn't be the person in the room who would be speaking to everybody, but she was the person who, through her quiet, determined way, made a statement. Of course, you got to mention walking and hiking for both my mother and father. It was something they did all the time, whether it was hiking every weekend in New Jersey for 40 years or walking the streets of New York. They always walked, and they walked quickly. And I know everybody tells me I walk quickly, and I think some of my brothers do, and that's because they always walked. It was in their DNA. And even when my mother, got sick and was using a walker, at both independent living and at memory care, she would walk. I remember we had to hire an assisted person so she could go on her walk because we knew that was important. And she would walk during the time she was in assisted living an hour a day with a walker or sometimes without it. And even when she was in memory care and not doing so well, she would walk the hallways. That was just in her DNA. And that love of walking and love of the outdoors and hiking affected all of us. We value, my brothers and I get together at least once a year, and we like to walk and we like to hike. And I think that's both from my mother. Love it. I don't remember really ever having an argument with my mother as an adult or with my two brothers. And that's because I think there was this love of family. Again, my parents weren't the sort who would lecture or tell you what to do. It was done in a quiet way. And I value that so much. I know that even as an adult, when I would discuss a difficult topic with my mother, she would always circle back, whether it was an email to say, I love you, or just thank you so much for sharing. It was clear to me that I was loved. Even when she was in memory care in the last couple of years of her life, the nurses who were wonderful at V, they would tell me, I just received yesterday a text from one of the nurses, which I'll read the relevant parts. She said, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but Lila was my favorite. We had a connection and she knew me. I will miss her and her spunk. So even when my mom wasn't doing well, she was the sort of person that people gravitated towards. There was another nurse, Erin, who would FaceTime me throughout the last 2 years and just tell me how special she was to my mother. And I would tell her how special she was and how we were comforted that, when times were tough, that people like her were there. Mom, you have touched my life and others. And although heaven is not well defined in Judaism, I hope you are reunited with Dad, who you were married to for over 60 years. You will always be in my heart. Love you.
Hello. So when I was thinking about all the things I wanted to say today, there was one thing that really stuck with me. When I was a kid, she wanted her house to feel like our home. Me and my sister, we each got a bedroom. Mine was bright purple, hers was bright pink. We're not sure how much my Zadie loved that, considering he only had 3 sons. It kind of threw him off. But my grandma loved it. She loved having 2 girls around. And we'd sleep over and we'd go to dinner often together. And before bed, we had a full nighttime routine. After dinner, we'd play Mahjong and have a midnight snack, which is really around 8 p.m. But when you're like 10, that's super cool. And I was really excited to stay up then. Then me and my sister would crawl in bed and we would read a book from a wicker basket. Our favorite book was called The Mitten. Essentially, the book is about a boy whose grandma tells him he must wear gloves outside because it's winter, and then if he loses the mittens in the woods and a rabbit finds it. The rabbit welcomes all different animals inside the glove because he wants it to stay warm. Different animals of every species and personality gather inside the glove to stay warm and eventually make a community in this very, very stretchy glove. Even when there's no room left in the glove, they make room. This book contained a line from the grandma to the grandson. When you come home, first I will see if you are safe and sound, and then I will make sure you still have your snow mittens. And this line captures her as a person. Because to start, if you knew her, you would make sure you were wearing gloves if it was anything under 50 degrees. But further, she welcomed everyone in her life. Everyone knew her, knew that she was a warm and patient soul. She put everyone's needs above her own. If it was her house, it was your house. If it was her black and white cookie, she'd give you the chocolate half because she knew it was your favorite, even though she didn't even like vanilla. And if it's back to school time, she would stop everything and shop until we couldn't carry any more shopping bags. She was a wonderful influence, grandma, and I'm beyond lucky that I got to grow up with her around the corner.
Lila was born on July 8th, 1931, and her life spanned, as you heard, more than 9 decades, 3 careers, 3 states, and 3 children and generations. She extended her life like she extended her love. She died on Erev Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the last day of the Jewish lunar year, a 13-month leap year this year. Rabbinic tradition suggests that those who pass on the last day of a year are considered righteous souls, beloved especially by the divine. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, Lila lived every last day of the last year she was given. We were given the full extent of years allotted to her. You heard much of the stories that I heard a little bit yesterday. She lived most of her life was born in New Jersey, and as a child enjoyed being cuddled up with her sister near radio, listening to Wild West Adventures of the Lone Ranger. Maybe that's where it planted the seed of coming west. Summer retreats with her family in North Adams, Massachusetts, working in her father's grocery store, enduring exceedingly long Passover seders, and 4 marriage proposals from different suitors, which were made more tolerable by the nice free meals that went with them. Jerry, it seems, was lucky number 5. In addition to her primary careers as a parent, a teacher, and a counselor, and then as a bubby, she played piano, musical arts, opera, loved hiking practically every week for decades, and perhaps her favorite hiking partner was the Grob's dog. And what she loved, she fully invested in. As a grandmother, she did her homework. She read books on how to grandmother successfully. The fun-filled spring break trips, toy chests and arts and crafts chests, tea time, the grandkids' rooms, which they helped decorate and obviously choose the color of the walls, the favorite bakery, and later the soccer games and basketball games and concerts. There's so many legacies that she leaves us. Evan talked about a woman very caring and practical. She was always there, and now it came back to family. Seth remembers a woman skilled and devoted, a strong-willed caregiver who took such good care of you and Sydney and insisted on staying with your dad in the hospital, even after she herself fell and got injured. And Stephanie, you talked about a woman who was, yes, deeply caring and nurturing, and a pioneering woman, educated, independent, creating her own career, introducing personality tests in her career, running a political campaign, and took you to buy your first business suits, thoughtful conversations about parenting, and offering another fabulous female role model for your daughters. I too marveled at Lila. In my time, I grew ever more impressed by her intellectual and emotional depth, sitting there behind a quiet, unassuming, and yet undeniably strong presence. Quiet, elegant strength exuded from her. And these are but a few memories, and I'm sure you have others to share, and I encourage you to write them down and share them with the family. Legacies that will endure for many generations to come, as long as we continue to gather and share them. I'm going to invite you to rise with me, and we'll offer the memorial prayer. And in this prayer, we envision the spirit of Lila being enveloped in the wings of the divine presence, even as these memories and her impact here on earth endure and are woven into the fabric of our lives. מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, עמסי מנוחה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מסתירים. נשמת נפשה שלך לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה ושאת כנפך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, תנוח בשלום. נועה ניסה. So we link to this task we've engaged in, remembering her, the obligation to ensure that she is laid to rest. In the process of contributing to the various תבוא בשלום. ישוב העפר על הארץ כשהיה, והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to its source. For the soul of Lila God be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May those who mourn find comfort, grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. You're the source of compassion and forgive us. Forgiveness. Grant us all a sense of peace. Let us say. Amen. that too. You guys. Stand with you and gathering to support you to honor her life and ensure her safe and peaceful rest. Where's Kaddish is this affirmation apply to sons you can for the next 11 months. Fine. The affirmation of life as reset. Amen. Amen. Yesh me Rabba Rachel Maya. Amen. Amen. Source of beauty. Amen. The family members come through. My comfort among the fellow mourners of Zion. Shiva.